Welcome into the Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong. Today's Thursday, October 3rd, and I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We got the best insider in the country, Steve Wiltfong, on this show. We're going to hit on the biggest developments heading into another important weekend of college football. So all you guys got to do is sit back for about the next 20 to 30 minutes and get caught up on all things recruiting. But first, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, so jump on board right now and hit subscribe. There's also some of you out there that have been considering signing up for On3. Well, guess what? Now is the time to do it because you can do it for $1. That's right. You can get On3 for just $1. Use promo code FONG1. Go to on3.com and use promo code FONG1 for On3 for $1. All right. Let's get to it. Bring in my guy, Steve Wiltfong. And we got to start out on the plains because, Steve, Auburn finally did it. I don't know how many shows we've talked about Deuce Knight potentially flipping from Notre Dame to Auburn, but on, what was last night? Wednesday night, Deuce Knight made it official. The number 7 ranked quarterback flips his commitment. What does it mean?
Well, 2 months ago to the day, I put in my On3 RPM for Auburn to ultimately flip Deuce Knight from Notre Dame. He was a silent commit to Hugh Freeze and the Tiger staff for so long. You started to wonder if he was actually going to do it. And I think that even internally inside that Auburn building, it was like, you're saying all the right things, but we need the actions to be of that publicly here. Or everybody's been around recruiting. You know, things happen, things are wild. So to get Deuce Knight's commitment publicly, to have him become the face of this class that now ranks number 4 nationally is massive. And now Auburn doesn't have to worry about keeping in touch with other quarterbacks, going to a plan B or a plan C, because Deuce Knight is 100% locked in with them moving forward, already wearing his recruiting cap. It gives him a potential franchise quarterback with tremendous upside. He has as much arm talent as anyone in the country. He is as much a threat as a dual threat passer as anyone in the country in this recruiting class. And there's so much development for Deuce Knight under Hugh Freeze and this coaching staff moving forward that you just get really excited about the trajectory of this program. I spent some time at Auburn earlier this fall, and Coach Freeze talked about how important it is to stack top 10 recruiting classes. They got one last year. They're at number 4 right now with a chance to finish number 1. They're already in the top 10 next year in 2026, sitting at number 6, I believe, right now, and in the mix for a lot of blue chippers. So the recruiting at a championship level, it's going to take some time on the field for that to take off with all these young players, but they're injecting a lot of talented players into this program, and Deuce Knight is as important a recruiting win as Coach Freeze and company have had since they've been at Auburn, flipping the longtime Notre Dame commit and officially getting him in the fold.
Yeah, we love a good silent commit here on the On3 Recruits channel, so good to see that finally go public, get it out there. Now, you said they want more talent in this class. There are some very talented players on the board here. Naeem Alford, Caleb Cunningham, Andrew Babelow. Those are just some of the 5-stars, but there's more. Steve, what's next for Auburn recruiting?
I think they have 7 top 100 commits right now, Deuce Knight being the latest. And you mentioned some of the names. Naeem Alford has been to 2 Auburn games this fall. He has been to an Auburn football practice this fall. So he is a regular on the plains, visiting, keeping up with the in-state program as he maintains his commitment to Ohio State and also keeps Oregon warm. He's going to be back in Eugene next weekend for the Ohio State-Oregon game. The Buckeyes are trying to get him back for Nebraska and Michigan games later in the fall, but they got their hands full. There's definitely a lot of interest in Auburn right now, but Auburn has to continue to show him how they're developing their players, continue to maintain that relationship, but certainly adding Deuce Knight and continuing to see the direction of the program with the young talents happening with Naeem Alford. You know, Caleb Cunningham wanted to see how Auburn plans to address their quarterback situation moving forward. Getting Deuce Knight is big because now that's a guy that he believes in, similar to Keelan Russell, who's committed to Alabama with him, as a guy that he thinks he could blossom with. I also expect Auburn to go to the transfer portal and get a 1-year guy under center after the season. All things that could be big in helping recruit Caleb Cunningham to the Plains. Then Andrew Babelow, he's just trying to announce a college decision before the end of his senior season. Auburn's one of the front runners. They're battling Michigan. They're They're battling Oklahoma. They're battling Stanford. They're battling Missouri. They'd like to add a couple more receivers if they could. C.J. Wiley, they're poking around on. Travis Smith, those might be uphill climbs. Sam Turner committed to Georgia Tech. There's been a ton of interest with Auburn and Sam Turner. They're looking at some defensive linemen like Joseph Mbachu. They've been swinging at defensive back Shamar Arnu. So a lot of potential flip targets for Auburn out there. And then, Josh, you have Usman Kromah, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about him.
Yeah, so, Kromah announced.
We're going to talk Georgia here in a second. So give us Usman Kromah from the Auburn perspective after landing Deuce Knight.
Well, he's announcing his commitment on Saturday. You talk to people around Georgia, they like the Bulldogs. You talk to people around Auburn, they say don't sleep on us. Tigers are in a good position for Usman Kromah as well. People around the program, you talk to my colleague Chad Simmons, people around Usman's high school program, they tend to lead in Georgia. But we'll see what happens. This is one where there is a shred of mystery going into Usman Kromah's announcement this weekend as Auburn and Georgia battle. But the one thing we've seen under Hugh Freeze and the staff is that they can win those kind of recruiting battles. We weren't seeing that in the regime beforehand. Auburn's beating the SEC powerhouses on the recruiting trail, which they hope leads to wins against those programs on Saturdays in the future. Usman Kromah is one that they prioritize way before Georgia did. Are they going to be able to get it to the finish line? We'll see on Saturday.
Yeah, this is one of those recruitments. We don't very often go into a decision not knowing or having a very good idea of where they're going. Kromah, hey, he's keeping people on their toes. It could be Auburn. It could be Georgia. Here in the 11 a.m. Central is when he's going to announce that decision, or around then. So it's likely going to be before kickoff of Georgia-Auburn. So we will see. But right now, Auburn fans, talk to us. Recruiting is on fire. You get Deuce Knight, rounds out the class, looking real good for some others. Let us know, comment section below, how we're feeling. All right, so we talked Deuce Knight flipping to Auburn, but on the flip side, Notre Dame, they just lost their top-rated commitment in the 2025 class. Where does the Irish go from here? What does it mean with Deuce Knight flipping to Auburn?
Well, I think Notre Dame's quarterback room is healthy with the guys that they've landed on the recruiting trail, particularly C.J. Carr, a true freshman that there's a lot of excitement around moving forward, a guy that we see competing for the starting job, if not winning it next year and being a multi-year starter for the Irish. They'd still like to add a 2025 quarterback to come in and push C.J. Carr and others in the room moving forward. They put out a feeler to Blake Baker about a month and a half ago when this Deuce Knight stuff really started taking off. I talked to Blake Baker's family this morning. Notre Dame reached out to his high school coach. I don't see much movement there right now. Blake Baker, excited about his future at North Carolina, has already really started to dive into the Tar Heels playbook, knows that staff. It's a place where he could play early in his home state. I think that Notre Dame's got some other irons in the fire for some other high-profile quarterbacks in this class. We'll see if some offers start to become public. That'll just depend on just the young man's interest in general. If we see a young man report a Notre Dame offer, I'm taking it as he has interest in Notre Dame, and we'll see what happens with their longstanding commitment with whichever program that they're committed to. Notre Dame's also evaluating senior film, so we'll see if someone emerges from that regard, maybe a less heralded name, but a guy that's talented, a player like Ian Book, who when he committed to Notre Dame wasn't all that heralded. I think he was even committed to San Diego State or something at the time, was also a really good high school lacrosse player. He took Notre Dame to 2 college football playoffs. So maybe it's a guy like that eventually comes in to push the room. And then Notre Dame, look, they want to add another receiver. You know, they flipped Antavius Richardson from USF over the earlier this week, beating Alabama for the on 300 playmaker from the Peach State. Jalen Cooper, he's committed to SMU right now, on 300 receiver. Notre Dame's got their sights set on him right now. And then linebackers a need for the Irish moving forward too. They're in it for 2 of the nation's best, Madden Farema, who was back on campus for the win over Louisville this past Saturday. And then Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng has Notre Dame either at the top or near the top of his list as they battle Michigan, Texas, and some other programs. So Notre Dame, they'd definitely like to add another quarterback. They got Noah Grubbs committed in 2026 already, on really 300 prospect from the Sunshine State. Linebacker and receiver, they're still attacking on the trail this cycle. And then it's CJ Carr. Deuce Knight was going to have to come in and compete with CJ Carr. He brought in a different skill set. Again, Notre Dame would have loved to have had Deuce Knight, but I still think they're excited about what they've seen from CJ Carr through last spring up until this point, and he's got a chance to be the guy next year and moving forward.
All right, Notre Dame fans, talk to us. Tough week, losing Deuce Knight, but still battling for a top 10 class. Let us know who your top targets are moving forward. Is there a quarterback right now that you want Notre Dame to go after? And let us know, comment section below. All right, Steve, let's talk Georgia recruiting, because there is a big visit weekend in Athens as the Dogs take on the Auburn Tigers, and we got a 5-star on campus. We're talking defensive lineman Justice Terry. He headlines a really impressive group that's going to be visiting for this noon kickoff. Let us know what you think, what you see, and who's important.
Well, I think that Georgia's the clear team to beat for Justice Terry. Alabama's trying to make it interesting down the stretch here. But the Bulldogs, Trey Scott, the feel that he gets around the program, the brotherhood of the players, just how comfortable he is in Athens. He's a one-time Georgia commit. I think this is a recruitment that's still trending towards coming back full circle. Defensive line's always important for Kirby Smart and company every cycle. And they monitor guys that are having great senior years with traits. And you look at Christian Ingram, Jeremiah McLeod, who's committed to Florida, Joseph Mabachu, who's also committed to Florida. Those are 3 traitsy defensive linemen that are going to be at this ball game this weekend. Christian Ingram, he might be a Clemson lean right now. And there's some other programs certainly coming into the mix for Ingram as well. You got Alabama, Florida State, to name a couple others. But big visit to Georgia this weekend. Jeremiah McLeod, he's already been to one Georgia game this year. He could see himself at Georgia, talking to him in the past, and then things are really starting to pick up with Mabachu. For Kirby Smart, he likes to get around these guys and see how they're wired. What's their personality like? How are they going to compete? What are they going to bring to that room? So I think part of it, bringing these guys in, is for him to just get a better feel for their personalities and the ones that he likes the most from an intangible standpoint, because these guys all have tangible traits. Those are going to be the ones that they're going to push for to try and run alongside Justice Terry and Elijah Griffin, who I think they're trending for. He's going to take his official visit for the Mississippi State game. So big weekend for Georgia on the defensive line. Starts with Justice Terry, but there's 3 other traitsy guys coming to campus.
All right, now how about CJ Wiley, the wide receiver committed to FSU, and the Sharks are circling around him. They're trying to, it's whether it's LSU, even Miami, Georgia, Auburn, everybody kind of kicking the tires on CJ Wiley. Do you expect him in Athens this weekend?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he ends up in Athens this weekend. His dad, look, he had to play a makeup game on Monday because of the hurricane last weekend. They play again on Friday. He's got the SAT on Saturday, his dad said, but it's not far to get to Athens. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him there. I know he's been invited. He's maintained communication with Coach Coley, Coach Kirby Smart and company. And look, he's still excited about his future with Florida State. He believes in that program. His dad's like, look, this is why they're recruiting you, to help get that program back on track. He's been to a couple Seminoles games this fall, but he is definitely keeping some programs warm, Georgia included. And so get them back on campus, get them around the commits, get them around the program, and remind them why Georgia football is so dominant every year. If he shows up, it's certainly really game on in this recruitment, because it's one thing to have conversations with programs. It's another thing to get on their campus and get around their coaches and be able to have in-person discussion and dialogue.
All right, this Saturday at about 11 a.m. Central, Kromah is going to make his decision, one of the top running backs in America. And for much of his recruitment, at least in the spring and summer, Georgia was kind of on the outside looking in of probably Florida State, Auburn, maybe even Tennessee. But you'd been saying it since about July. Hey, watch Georgia, because if they put their pedal to the gas here on this Kromah recruitment, they can land him. Well, Steve, we're about 48 hours out from Kromah's decision. What do you think Georgia is expecting on Saturday?
Well, over the last few weeks, Georgia has hit the gas on this recruitment, had Kromah in for a game a couple weekends ago. There was a lot of positive Georgia buzz coming out of that experience, but then he returned to Auburn, returned to Florida State, and it just kind of depends on who you ask, right? If you ask people around Georgia, they feel good about where they stand with Kromah. You ask people around Auburn, same thing, and Auburn's prioritized them for a long time. But people around the school, talking with our colleague Chad Simmons, who's kind of been the lead reporter on Kromah, he gets a Georgia vibe from people around Kromah schools. So we'll see what he does on Saturday. He's still being positive with Auburn, still being positive with Georgia, obviously. So this is a recruitment where we'll just see who at the end of the day he was being more honest with.
Right. Georgia fans, let us know how we feeling about Kromah's decision on Saturday. Also, give us a score prediction for Auburn and Georgia. All right, let's talk some Nebraska recruiting because in Lincoln, Rutgers is coming to town for a Big Ten
Undefeated
matchup.
Rutgers.
Undefeated Rutgers is coming to town for a Big Ten matchup in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we're going to have a lot of Nebraska commits on campus, but also a big flip target.
Yeah, it's going to be sellout 401 in a row for Nebraska inside Memorial Stadium. And soaking in that pageantry is going to be four-star receiver out of St. Louis, Corey Sims. He's a USC commit that Nebraska has not gone away on. Nebraska flipped Isaiah Mosey from Oregon earlier this cycle. They're hoping to do the same here with another standout from Missouri in Corey Sims. I think it's still a little bit in that early stages of that. His family tells me he's locked in with USC, just going to go take in the game and see what happens. But a great showing in front of a great crowd with the young quarterback in Dylan Raiola could certainly go a long way in moving the needle for Corey Sims.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some of the commits are on campus and also a strong crop of 2026 prospects. Steve, who stands out to you this weekend in Lincoln?
Yeah, one of the headliners is on 300 defensive lineman Bryce Perry-Wright out of Buford, Georgia. You got a pair of four-star offensive tackles Nebraska's going to turn it up for in Maxwell Robinson and Caden Snyder. Nebraska's the early on-3 RPM favorite for receiver Devion Bonwell-Whitty, who camped in June. And then Keenan Harris, he visited at the end of July. He's also from St. Louis University High School. Nebraska, the early on-3 RPM favorite for him. In the 2027 class, you got quarterback Trey Taylor coming in from Illinois. He's got a national offer list. And then two in-state 2027s that Nebraska has already offered and considered the early favorite for. You got running back Kylon Haney and safety Torrey Pittman.
All right, Nebraska fans, talk to us. How we feeling about this matchup against Rutgers? Is Raiola going to stay hot? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, we're going out to Columbus. We're talking Ohio State recruiting as Iowa comes to town. Now, there's a couple big visitors on campus, and I noticed linebacker TJ Alford is coming back. He recently took a visit to FSU. I know he's been on Miami's campus. Good for the Buckeyes to get him back this weekend.
Yeah, major to get him and Riley Pettijohn back to campus. Ohio State's got arguably the best linebacker class in the land. These are guys that have been keeping other schools in the region warm, but I think their love for the Buckeyes still has Ohio State in great position to sign it. And just getting them inside the shoe, what'll be a great atmosphere, getting them around Tavian St. Clair and the rest of their future classmates, their future position coaches. It's going to be a great atmosphere up there at Ohio State for a big game. And these are key pieces to their class as they try and maintain a championship standard. And so anytime you get your commits back on campus that are flirting with other schools, Zion Grady, who continues to talk to like Auburn and Florida State and such, those are guys that they'll be very happy to get back to campus and continue to remind them why they chose Ohio State in the first place.
Yeah, when you recruit nationally, you know that's one of the things you got to do. You got to keep those points of contact consistent, and that's what they're doing, getting these guys on campus for this game. Couple 2026 offensive linemen visiting, also Bama commitment Dorian Barney. What stands out to you for some of these young guns?
Yeah, well, Rodney Dunham's one of the top edge rushers in the country from Charlotte Myers Park. He's visiting this weekend. He's also on a baseball visit this weekend, so one of the true dual sport athletes in the 2026 class. Ohio State's going to be a factor in that recruitment as he's high on the football and baseball programs. And then Dorian Barney, committed to Alabama, maintains the Crimson Tide are his number one. But Ohio State was a program that was always near the top of his list as well. Coach Tim Walton has maintained that relationship with Dorian Barney. They're excited to get him to campus. You got a couple 2027s I like Ohio State for too, Josh. Quarterback Brady Edmonds, he's the number 2 quarterback in the land from California. And then Jameer Brown is the number 1 recruit in the state, number 1 athlete in America. Brian Hartline offered him back in June. They've already made him feel like a priority. So I think Ohio State will be tough to beat for both of them. Will they take Brady Edmonds early? Will they wait to see how these quarterbacks continue to develop on Fridays? We'll see. If you take a quarterback early at Ohio State, you believe that he's going to be one of the best in the country for the next 2 years if you take him early, because that's the kind of magnitude that the Buckeyes recruit that position at. Easy to see why Brady loves the Buckeyes. Chip Kelly, that offense, he's always been an Ohio State fan. So those are two big-time 2027s that could get Ohio State's class off and running 2 cycles from now.
Yeah, that would be a hot start to 2027. I mean, I know it sounds early. We're talking 2027 QB recruiting, but Steve, this is how it goes. And Brady Edmonds, I mean, he looks like he is ready to go. He's already almost 6'5", 205 pounds. I mean, he's a 2027 prospect. So we'll see what happens this weekend. But yeah, I talked to Matt Parker with our Letterman Row site. We have a video up on Brady Edmonds and the possibility of him potentially committing to Ohio State soon. So we'll see how that goes. But Ohio State fans, let us know, comment section below, how we're feeling about this Iowa game and also recruiting. All right, Steve, let's head out to Oregon. The Friday night lights are on. Oregon versus Michigan State Friday night, and there will be recruits on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts with DeCorian Moore, the number 1 receiver in the country, one of the jewels of this Oregon class. He returns to Eugene this weekend, as does fellow receiver on 300 recruit Cooper Perry. And then the number 2 defensive lineman in the 2026 class, Tony Cumberland, all have already given Dan Lanning the thumbs up, committed, and look to be solid with their pledges. A few other top targets for Oregon this weekend. The number 1 ranked edge rusher in the On3 player rankings, Zion Ely. He returns after a great visit for Saturday Night Live at the end of July. He said it was amazing, called it his best visit yet, said the environment's insane, and thinks that he has an opportunity to play early on a defense that he really feels like he fits in. And he talked to a lot of other prospects that were there for Saturday Night Live, and he told me that they all agreed it was the best visit that they've been on. His teammate, the number 5 safety in the On3 industry, Jaira Edwards, he too is at Saturday Night Live. He too is going to be at Oregon this weekend. He has talked about what the special things that Oregon has building, and said Oregon has a lot of things a student athlete should want in a school on and off the field. Our colleague Chad Simmons reported that the nation's number 2 defensive lineman, Aiden Harris, and his twin brother, Andrew Harris, will be there. Been a lot of Ohio State buzz around Aiden Harris. We'll see if Oregon can change that this weekend. And their teammate out of Matthews Weddington in North Carolina, linebacker Thomas Davis Jr., he'll also visit this weekend. And then Tiki Hola is a 4-star from Texas, a 4-star defensive lineman from Bastrop that Oregon has offered. They're bringing in this weekend. So even though it's a Friday game,
yeah,
really good visitor list, these guys stay the night. Then they get all day Saturday to spend with the coaches with no distraction of a game. So if you're able to get this kind of star power on campus for a Friday game, which is hard to do because most kids play on Friday nights, it actually works out to your benefit. With on Saturday, you can bring them back to the facility. You should win your game on Saturday or on Friday night. Should just be good vibes around the building all weekend for these recruits to soak in.
Yeah, who knew Friday night would be a big visit weekend for this Michigan State game? Because like you said, it's very rare to see this many quality visitors in for a Friday night game, especially knowing what next week is going to be in Eugene with Ohio State coming to town. We'll get to all that. That's going to be a huge visitor list. But Oregon fans, you got to be pumped about what's coming on campus this weekend. Let us know how we feel about recruiting. Comment section below. All right, let's head out to Texas. We're going to talk Texas A&M versus Missouri. And one of the headliners for this game, it's at Texas A&M, but one of the headliners is offensive tackle Lamont Rogers, who's committed to Missouri. So how does this work, Steve? Is he visiting as an A&M recruit? Because that's really the only way he can get in the stadium, at least for free.
Well, he's been to A&M earlier this fall. He went to the Notre Dame game, and he has maintained dialogue with several programs, SMU, Oklahoma, to name a couple others. He's made some other visits this fall as well. A&M is at the forefront of this recruitment. They definitely have a shot to flip him, but it's an opportunity for Missouri to go into the Lone Star State and get a big win in a top 25 matchup where they're the top 10 team, and Texas A&M is ranked 25th nationally. But I think A&M's got some. I think A&M's been trending up in this recruitment since he committed to Missouri, but will ultimately be enough to flip them? Time will tell. This is a big game, a big opportunity for them to get a win over Missouri on their home turf.
All right. So, like you said, big game out in College Station. Who else fires you up that's going to be at this one?
Well, he's not the only offensive lineman on campus that Texas A&M would love to land in the 2025 class. On 300 recruit Nelson McGuire picked up an offer from Texas A&M this fall. The on 3 RPM is on Auburn right now for Nelson McGuire, but Texas A&M is a program that could change that in a hurry. He's had a lot of high interest in the Aggies, had dialogue with them well before they offered him a scholarship. It's one of the programs he wanted an opportunity from. Now he has it. Now he's on campus. And again, you beat a top 10 Missouri team. It really shows the direction of this program under Mike Elko and company. And we'll see what they're able to do on the field with Lamont Rogers, Nelson McGuire, and a lot of talented underclassmen in the stands.
Yep, going to be a fun one out in College Station. A&M fans, let us know how you're feeling about that. All right, let's head out to South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, where Ole Miss is coming to town. It's going to be a fun one, and the Gamecocks have a couple important flip targets on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they have the same kind of environment that they had for the game against LSU, these recruits are going to remain excited about the South Carolina Gamecocks. And many of them were at the LSU game. Now they're returning, hoping to watch South Carolina knock off a top 25 team in Ole Miss. You have Damola Ajidahun. He's on 300, top 100 recruit, currently committed to Georgia Tech, 6'6", 295-pound offensive tackle. That's coming back with his family after coming to the game against LSU with his coaches. His coach has got a connection to George Rogers. George Rogers, a legendary player at South Carolina, won the 1980 Heisman Trophy. I believe he was the first pick in the NFL draft. He definitely has a statue of himself outside Williams-Brice Stadium. So there's some South Carolina ties around Damola as he returns to campus here. South Carolina's been on him for a long time. So they're definitely one of the threats to flip him from Georgia Tech, along with Georgia and Ohio State. Another offensive lineman committed to Georgia Tech that's visiting this weekend is Jimmy Bryson out of Chattanooga Baylor School. He talked about loving the atmosphere, coaches, and chemistry at South Carolina amongst that program. Malik Clark was committed to Florida State when he originally put himself on the South Carolina visitor list. He is no longer committed to Florida State. South Carolina's got a chance to really close this class strong and finish with a number top 25 haul, because I like where they stand with Malik Clark coming into the weekend. There's going to be other schools like Colorado coming in here trying to convince Malik Clark to come out there late. And Donovan Murph, I think that they're the leader for Donovan Murph right now, who reclassified from 2026 to 2025. Donovan Murph's going to take some officials, but South Carolina's setting the tone for both of them right now. And this is just a big opportunity for them to capitalize on the field. And then there's two JUCO defensive linemen visiting this weekend that are very notable: Kelton Michael and Xavier Hardy. Xavier Hardy at one point was committed to South Carolina when he was in high school, and those are two pivotal instant impact type players for South Carolina to keep it rolling moving forward. But a lot of excitement around this program. They would have beat LSU without some key injuries at some key positions, in my opinion, that Saturday. We'll see how healthy they are going into this game against Ole Miss. But we know that atmosphere is going to deliver. Shane Beamer and company are doing a fantastic job of building great relationships. Many of their top 2026 targets, Akini Ogboko, Samari Matthews, Jordan Gidrin, the number one player in the state, will be on campus this weekend. Trayshawn Ruffin's a defensive lineman. They're in a good spot for in-state running back Jalen McGill. They can start stacking top 25, top 20 classes if they win games like this, because no program's coaching staff works harder on the trail. This team, Shane Beamer company, they bust their butts on the trail building meaningful relationships. They have some resources and infrastructure to be a contender in some of these blue chip battles. These are the pivotal games that help you gain a lot of inches in some of these blue chip battles. Beat Ole Miss on Saturday. We'll be talking a lot about South Carolina over the next 2 months, Josh, on Wilt Farm Whip Around and Inside Scoop if they do that.
Yeah, and Ole Miss comes in limping a little bit. This is one that South Carolina could get at home, and it would have a big impact on recruiting. All right, Steve, let's wrap it up. We are going to do Recruit Reaction again on this Saturday. That's a great show. You guys should all tune in. We're going to go live talking Recruit Reaction. We're going to feature that Auburn-Georgia game. So, Steve, let's get predictions for Auburn versus Georgia.
Georgia covers the spread.
What is the spread?
Last I saw, it was 4 touchdowns, I think.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, I think it'll be close like early when they kick off, but then I got Georgia by 30.
Nah, look, Auburn's defense is sound. They'll give a spirited effort like they have every week, but they're playing a Georgia team coming off a loss. I heard Jalen Walker delivered a passionate speech inside that Georgia locker room following the loss to Alabama. This team is going to rally, that Georgia team. If they're already one of the more button-up programs in the country, but they came out flat against Alabama. They know they can't. There's not much margin for error. I know there's a 12-team playoff and all that moving forward, but Georgia, that loss to Alabama, I think has motivated them even more so moving forward. And it just so happens that Auburn is the next opponent.
Yep. Well, Saturday evening, we'll be right here back on the channel. So go ahead, hit subscribe, and we will be back for more Recruit Reaction.